Yo, what is up, world? It is me, Mikey, reporting from Immortals Inc. Studios. And if I'm not talking, it's just me here. But I'm here with one of my BFFs.
Hi.
Amanda, the World of Darkness aficionado.
Or
Is that what we call you in the description?
You guys call me the Lady of Darkness, but
Lady of Darkness. Yeah, many aliases.
I'm like your supernatural specialist.
Exactly. So, got some stuff to talk about today, right?
Yeah, so today I'm bringing to you the Camarilla guide. It's the 5e Cam guide.
Oh, nice.
Camarilla's the vampire good guys.
Yeah, we talked about them before. Like, you would mention them, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, I think I remember them, but they're the good guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, Carlos tends to disagree that no vampire's a good guy. But in terms of vampiric society, they see humans as an essential part, not as cattle. So that's what kind of separates them. So you have the main factions. You have the Cam, the Sabbat, and then you have the Anarchs. Now, there are independents, but they basically just don't have an alignment.
Okay.
And the Anarchs are fight the system. And the Sabbat is basically they want to embrace being a vampire.
Okay. So, like, super vampirical are the Sabbat. And then we just got Carlos, a.k.a. the Anarchists. Okay.
Well, in terms of the Anarchists, which we will cover that book at a later time, they're basically fighting the Ivory Tower. That's their whole mantra, and they consider the Camarilla the Ivory Tower.
Wow. Okay. Well, here we are, Camarilla.
Yep. For those who have not played Vampire before, the main players in the Cam are the Toreador, your artistic vampires. You got the Ventru, which are your bureaucrats.
Ventru popped up in my head before.
Yes, they're Jim's favorite. The Tremere, the Warlocks, my favorite. But they are the Fallen clan in the series. Malkavian, the Lunatics and Madmen. The Nos, which are basically your spies and your sleuths, but they're not very good looking.
Pointy ears.
Yeah, the Nosferatu movie, they're all supposed to be hideous.
You mean like SpongeBob?
Kind of like that. Yes, like SpongeBob. Then you have the Banu Hakim, which are the assassins. They're the new version of the Assamites.
Okay.
And then you have the untrustworthy La Sombra, which you know my opinions on La Sombra. They are the recent converts to the Cam. Then you have the Mistakes, also known as the Thin Bloods. They're the vampires that have the highest generation or furthest from Cain.
Okay.
So generation is how many, like a second generation would be whoever Cain embraced.
Okay.
And then it goes forward until you hit like the 10th gens, 11th, 12th, 13th, and then you have 14th, which is your Thin Bloods.
Okay.
Anything beyond 13 is a Thin Blood.
Okay. So after 13, you're kind of like too far from that bloodline in a way.
Yes. And so most games are run with people who are playing 13th generation. Even in Old World of Darkness, most players started at 13th gen.
Okay, and you can work your way up?
You can, but it's frowned upon if you do it wrong.
Sheesh.
So speaking of that, I guess we'll just skip ahead to the thing called the traditions. And this is where diablerie, which is what you're speaking of getting ahead by biting other vampires and eating their soul.
Wow.
Yeah, so kind of Highlander-esque.
When you put it like that. Oh, yeah, Highlander. We talked about that. You saw that video, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it's kind of like that. You take out somebody to get their powers, okay?
Okay.
And it's frowned upon in the Cam.
Okay.
Now, something that has changed since Old World of Darkness and the 5e is the whole idea of the Valdery. And the Valdery is like a blood bond between vampires where it's done in groups. And so the Valdery doesn't seem to be frowned upon as much as it used to be. Now, they call it a coterie. It's like your little pack of vampires. So they're making the Cam and the Sabbat a little closer than they were in Old World of Darkness. Back in the day, blood bonds, they were usually a punishment.
Oh, okay.
So the idea that blood bonds are now like a political thing is another part that has changed.
Yeah. Kind of like our politics here in America.
Yes.
Like, now blood bonds are normalized.
Yeah. It's like okay, I guess.
Yeah. Sure.
But through a blood bond, you can control other vampires. So if somebody's bound to you, you can make them do your bidding. So it's like depending on how tight the bond is or how deep the bond is, you could order someone around.
Okay.
It goes from like, hey, I like you better than I did yesterday to devotion.
Pretty quick.
Yes. And so speaking of the political side, the traditions start with hospitality. When you come into town, you present yourself to the prince. Okay, and that's like your leader of the city.
Okay.
Okay. Then you have domain, which is, in the past, it was more authority over your area where you fed and authority of the prince over the town. But now it's also responsibility. So if you see things, you do things. So if you see something that's happening in your part of town, out of respect, you defend it. Out of respect, you keep the rules.
Okay.
Yep. Not only for the prince, but for yourself.
Okay. Get some brownie points, too, from the prince.
Yep, for sure. Then you have accounting for your childer or your lesser. Yeah, so accounting's a big one that you run into. So when you run a vampire game, if somebody's playing someone else's childer or they're playing a new vampire, generally another player will take accounting for them. So they basically have to pay for the sins of those they've created or have chosen to take ownership of or leadership of.
It's getting deep.
But technically, that means a prince, if they ever had to answer to someone higher than themselves, which there are positions above that, but this book doesn't really go into Justicars.
Okay.
It mentions them, but there are positions above prince, and they could potentially have to account for their city. So that is an option. Progeny, permission to create. You can't create a vampire without permission.
Ooh.
So that's a big thing in the cam.
Okay.
So with the Sabbat, they can just make them. They don't care.
Yeah. Are they the type to just feast upon?
Yeah, the Sabbat are all about creating more.
Going up to in the gens?
Yes.
Getting up? Okay.
But cam, it's not cool. So you have to ask permission. And if you create an accidental, you better get them hospitality.
You said most cam are what, 13th gen? Like
when you start in a game.
When you start?
Yes. People do play elders, which is like 9th and so forth. But you don't normally see people playing anything lower, like a Methuselah. You and I are going to have to do a video eventually on generation.
Yeah. It's already confusing me.
Yeah, because it's very deep.
It's got to be. I mean, this is like the tip of the iceberg.
Yes. So. Then there's destruction, which is the right to destroy another vampire. So you have to also get permission for that. It's a little bit more lenient.
Could I kill this person, please?
Yes. That's legit a thing. And it can go as far as like somebody has totally wronged you or wronged the city, and they will call what's called a blood hunt on them. And that's when diablerie is okay.
So that's like a bounty, basically?
Yeah. A free-for-all bounty where anyone who gets that person, that vampire, can
murder them or do whatever they choose. Okay. So, wow. Is this like a whole like court system that the Camarilla use?
Yes. And we're going to go over the court.
Okay.
But I want to hit the most important rule in all of the traditions first.
Oh, yeah. You're hitting the book. Yeah.
And that's the masquerade.
Yeah.
And so the whole namesake of the whole series of games is keeping the secret. Keeping the humans, the sleepers, in the dark about the supernatural. And not just vampires, because if they realize that there's werewolves, they realize that there's hunters, they might realize there's vampires. And then you have the whole situation like the Second Inquisition, where vampires are being put down.
Well, too bad we already know about them, because I saw them on YouTube. So.
Well, yeah. I
saw a leaked video of vampire sighting on YouTube. I think it's real.
I think with the current day and age, with the digital, that makes it a little bit different than playing World of Darkness 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So when I started playing, vampires didn't show up on camera. You know, they would like blip in and out on digital video. I've noticed that there's a change.
Yeah, especially
with social media and how far we've gone with tech. So the whole tone has changed. So people, when I mentioned the masquerade, it also goes with the idea of in werewolf called the veil, which is where humans disbelieve. And so as a storyteller, because I run all 3 games, I kind of keep that mantra that humans want to disbelieve that stuff could be real.
Right. They're
and
like,
so,
nah.
So that helps with the masquerade.
Okay, yeah.
Because they want to not.
There's always two sides as well. Like, yeah, Santa Claus is real, regardless of what you think, and Santa Claus is not.
Yes, and if you're a little kid out there, Santa Claus is totally real.
No, Santa Claus is real. I will join that discussion, and we could, debate that in the comments.
Yes. Yeah. Feel free to debate me. I'm all about that.
Kids should not be watching this, though. This is 18 and up.
You think a kid stop and looking around on the YouTube?
No, there's definitely kids looking at worse. So if you're watching this, it's okay. I mean, hopefully your parents are okay with it. Continue.
All right. So you had mentioned the whole thing with leadership.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And the court. And that is what the governing structure is called. Okay. And they're led by what's called a prince, similar to like a governor. So basically you're Mike DeWine.
Oh, come on, man.
Or maybe something more likable. So you have that. Then you have their right hand, the seneschal, their lieutenant. Okay, so that person stands in when the prince isn't there.
Okay.
So they can handle acknowledgments, which is you getting accepted into the city. There's also one of the traditions, hospitality, also stands as a term of status where somebody can grant you hospitality so you don't get attacked in the city. Because technically, if you don't present yourself, the sheriff, which is one of the other positions, will look for you and either make you present yourself or end yourself.
Wow, so you have to present yourself if you dare to enter that city.
Yes, it's a big deal.
Okay.
So
I respect that.
You have your seneschal, then you have the Primogen Council, which is like your senate. They work closely with the prince to make and abide by the rules.
Can they overrule the prince?
Sometimes.
Okay.
It depends. It depends on how democratic your court. Like, just like state to state or city to city.
Okay, so city to city.
You might have a variation.
Yep. Say less. That's perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, city to city.
Then you have their backups, which is the whips. So if one of the Primogen that's on that council isn't there, and each of the Primogen will represent their clan.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you'll have like a Ventru Primogen, and then they should have a whip. So if they're not there, their whip can sit in for them.
Okay.
Okay. And then you have the sheriff, which I mentioned, which is like their version of the police. This position used to be two positions, the sheriff and scourge. Now it's one.
Okay.
So it used to be they would handle the rules for those who were acknowledged and those who were not. Now they just handle it, period.
They just get a nice golden badge.
Basically, yes. Then you have the herald, which is the new name of the harpy. And the harpy keeps track of boons, which are debts that are owed between vampires. They keep track of status. So each of these positions comes with terms of status, like acknowledged, exalted, and status can be used in social situations to push the envelope.
Okay.
Okay. And they also now act as the voice of the prince, which wasn't the thing in the past. So anyone who's ever read the old school Harpy primer, the Harpy was like the Supreme Court. They were the balance to the rest of the political structure. Now they're part of it.
Okay.
So you might have some people who play this role as it used to be, where they're basically telling the prince, hey, that's not right. You shouldn't do that. But you might have him be a yes man.
Oh, yeah, we got those. Plenty of those.
Yes, there's lots of those. Then you have some new positions, the principle of faith.
Ah, convincing.
So this one's new.
How convincing?
They advise the coterie, or the city of vampires, in terms of the soul. So faith has become a bigger part of Vampire the Masquerade. It used to just be like basic Christianity, like was part of it. Okay.
Yeah.
They've taken a different idea, and so they do have all the cults that are part of both sects. So that you'll have cults that are within the Cam, cults that are within the Sabbat. Okay. And so they all have beliefs in terms of being vampires. In terms of the principle of faith, it's more of their connection to Cain.
Okay.
Okay. In Cam, you don't normally run into any other morality paths other than humanity. You might run into somebody who follows something else, but that generally requires something we'll get into known as the shovel party.
Oh, it gets deeper than that.
Yeah, so that's going to be more in our Sabbat discussion. You can change paths, but most cam games will focus on humanity. Okay. And then you have the Shadow, which is your advisor on kindred getting along in human society.
Okay.
So they help that along.
Nice little guide.
Yes. So if you have somebody who's archaic, so somebody who just woke up and they've been asleep for a long time, they've been in torpor, so staked in a box somewhere.
Great.
Yeah, which can happen.
Perfect.
The Shadow would probably get them up to speed and up and running as a vampire in current society, so they don't make mistakes. Then we have the least desirable position in the whole court as a player, Keeper of Elysium. And so you're basically the host of Elysium, which is the place that's safe for all vampires to visit without imminent threat of violence.
Or what happens if there is violence there?
They're supposed to stop it.
Okay.
So if you're playing a keeper, you can't leave Elysium. You are stuck. And so nobody ever wants to play that. It usually ends up being an NPC, a non-player character.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to do it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Crypt Keeper vibes.
So what this book does is it goes over all of this stuff. In terms of the rules, the social structure, history of the cam, and how the vampires split into the different factions. It has lore sheets for all the clans that are part of the cam, so you have some special extra, I would say, merits for Toreador, Ventrue, Banu Hakim, Tremere. They all have a lore sheet in there. So they all get something special for being part of the cam that they can take.
Oh, sweet.
Yep. So is it worth it? Yes. For a storyteller, 100%. I would recommend this. This is a very important book.
Was it like $50 usually?
I think these books are a little less expensive. It says 50, but often
we might have them for 45. Check the link in the description. Yeah, wow. Perfect.
So yeah, they're pretty awesome books. It's very well done, very sturdy, put together. It's not cheap printing. It's a very nice book. It's very good in terms of a asset for a storyteller or even as a player for making your characters and understanding the traditions. It even goes into detail on all the positions, what they do, how to play them. It's amazing.
Okay, cool.
So I give it a solid 9 out of 10.
Boom.
The only things I'd want to change about it is Harpy, I think, Herald should have more to it because it's a position that's now expanded upon. Unless they're planning on making a Herald primer like they did with the Harpy primer in the past, there's so many things that go along with status that I think they could have done more here. And I also think as you look at some of the other books like the Chicago by Night, I think it expanded upon them. The positions in the city more so than here. So you definitely want to have both because it does have more to the court.
Yeah, okay. 9 out of 10 is solid, though.
Yes,
solid.
it's solid.
Solid Amanda score.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming in today, Amanda. This is your Camarilla guide, and we plan to be dropping new episodes every Saturday or every other Saturday. It's probably going to be every other Saturday, but either way, World of Darkness aficionado is coming to rescue us all. So, and let them know you'll be running here at Immortals a few times.
Yes, I run monthly, so I run Vampire in the evenings once a month, and then during the day, I run Hunter and Werewolf combined. So if you wanted to, you could sink a whole Saturday in with me and get a taste of all of it. So
nice.
My next game is the 27th, and then I have a game already set in May and in June. So just hit up the calendar on immortalsinc.com, and you'll find me there.
Yep, couldn't have said it better myself. Have a good one, guys.